In this video, I wanted to introduce you to the Institute's Guide to Harvard Referencing. It's a superb tool put together and collated by our library staff, and something that I think can be a real help to you. It's a document that can get you what you want when you want, and that's when time is precious. That's very helpful. In general, with referencing, this document outlines, I suppose, at the start that they let the reader know the material that you've used. They show the research that you've done. It allows you to back up your arguments with citations from these peer-reviewed or high-quality sources. And because that you are not taking any work as your own, so that if you're avoiding plagiarism. So for example, here, plagiarism would be the use of another's work and without an acknowledgement of the source. And someone is taking someone else's work as theirs. So the key thing here is when you read these sources, you identify the key points and you paraphrase. That means you write in your own words the key point that you want to make, and you back it up with the citation of this and of the source, and then you'd have a reference of that later on in a references section. So this document gives you a nice introduction briefly, even tells you what's the Harvard style of referencing. And style is to do with kind of how the references look and how they're presented in a document. And believe it or not, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different styles that exist. And even amongst Harvard, there's quite a few variations across different institutes who would all say they're using Harvard, but they've adopted subtle differences between them. So in our institute, we use this Harvard style system, and we're going to be able to have citations and a references section included. So I'll just show you, for example, if I go into sciencedirect.com and I want to find an article, I have one here where I just went in and searched for a particular topic, and I see I get a hit of a web page. Now, not every paper will be accessible for somebody who just logs on to sciencedirect.com, but because you're a student in DkIT, I would recommend that you access this by going into the library's webpage, by going to the electronic resources and Science Direct database, and then signing in that way, it'll recognize that you're a DkIT student, and you'll have access to the licenses and the articles that the college has paid for. And so that'll give you more access to different papers. But as you go down here, this is a web page. You see it's quite lengthy. If we were ever to print something like this, it's a bit too much work for our printers and paper resource. So what we do is we download the PDF. And by doing that, you get the article in the way it would look in the journal. Now, just to show you here, you might be familiar, you look at a paragraph, you see at the end of the first sentence, here you see a 1 in brackets. And you go down, you see a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So this is not a Harvard way. I just wanted to show you what that looked like first. But what's so handy about these kind of PDFs and papers is that, say I read that first article, epigenetic regulation, and I'm reading and it's very interested and I want to know what about that article. When I click it, I can find out a bit more about that. And even in the article itself, I know article number 1. So when I go to the references, I know that this is the paper that I might want to read. Right? Or so on, another one, or whatever one you wanted to find. So these are presented chronologically. So you'll see that it's done by first letter and then surname later on, and it's done in the order you meet them. So that's very different than the Harvard system. So let's take a look at the table of contents of this document, because that's really what can bring you where you want, when you want. So as you see, it's quite a lengthy table of contents, but it's really helpful because it's hyperlinked to where you want to go. So for example, in this 4.5.1, if you want to reference a web page, you can click it and it'll show you exactly what the reference should look like, the citation and the according reference section also. So you really get a nice overview from that table of contents. If I come back up again and I say I want to do a journal article that I've read in a database 4.2.2, I can just click the text and it brings me to the relevant section. So you get the idea here that this table of contents can bring you where you need to go when you want. So I think it gives you a huge amount of information that you can really help you build your citation and your referencing. The document itself is one I think you should bookmark. It's something that you're going to need for everything that you begin to write further throughout your degree. And if you're writing a review, a literature review in a project and so on, and you have numerous references, it's something that you need to have as a guide. This can be a painstaking process if you're going to do lengthy number of references. So wouldn't it be cool if there was an electronic way to maybe help you with this? And there is, and that's something I'm going to put in another video with an online referencing and publication management system called Mendeley. It's one that we have adopted in the college and one we highly recommend that students engage with. But I'll do a separate video on kind of the fundamentals for that. But It's probably primarily of benefit if you have numerous amounts of resources, of references and sources that you want to include. If you only have a few, you may be happy to type them out, but you can see now what you need to do in order to have a citation and a reference. I'll show you Mendeley in the other video, which will help build on that as well. Okay, thanks everybody.